Do you remember the biggest fight you ever had with Vince McMahon?
The biggest argument fight that I had with Vince, my goodness. I got to run through that 30-year Rolodex, and I think people's perception is that me and Vince were in lockstep together through that whole 30 years, but we butted heads a lot. Yeah, sometimes our visions on the product and the business were polar opposites, and there were a lot of times where I would choose the hill that I wanted to die on, and a lot of them I'd have to assess, like, okay, if I do this, like I would think, okay, well, this needs to be done this way. This is how he wants me to do it. Like, okay, do I do it? Is this the hill that I'm gonna fight him on, or do I just wait? Um, but there, I don't know. If this was the biggest one. I will give you an argument that I fought and I lost, but this was the only time that he ever came back to me and said that I was right and he was actually wrong. Out of 30 years, there was one time, and that was the Punjabi Prison Match. It was originally supposed to be with Khali. Khali had something going on, and they had to put Big Show in the match. And Vince had this idea about, he wanted us to go through the gate or something while we were fighting, and that's how I would get out of the cage. Or I had the idea that I wanted to jump from the inner cage to the outer cage and get out that way. I thought, man, that'll be such a cool visual. I said, they won't expect it. It'll look amazing. And we went at it and back and forth. And it finally got to the point where I don't want to hear anything else about it. This is the way we're going to do it. I'm like, fine. It's going to suck. And when it sucks, it's going to be on you. But he didn't appreciate that either. But anyway, we did it the way he wanted it, and it was flat. I mean, it was like womp, 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 womp. And so I go back and I just looked at him. I didn't have to say a word. He knew, and he goes, almost under his breath, he goes, yeah, I think you were right on that cage spot. And I was like, really? He just turned around and walked off. But that was such a victory for me to actually have him admit that he was wrong on something. It didn't happen very often. And there was another time. This wasn't so much as an argument as it was almost a physical fight. And this is at the end of my career when I was only working, 2-3 times a year. And I showed up. And I wasn't even there. I think I don't know if it was Raw or SmackDown was here, my hometown, and I just went up there to see him. Been going through a bunch of stuff personally, and having a time outside of the business. It was a rough time in my life, and a lot of things going on, and I went into his office just to say hello and see how he was doing. And anyway, we get to talking, and I kind of start going off and telling him all this stuff, and he looks at me, and it was as straight a face as it could be. He goes, "You know what, Mark? I really think you need to quit feeling sorry for yourself." I was like, "What?" He says, "Yeah, you're feeling sorry for yourself. Man up." There was a sense of rage that come over me at that moment. Like, man, I thought me and you are friends, and like I'm talking to you as a friend. I'm not talking to you as my boss, and I'm just letting you know what's going on in my life. And again, he was right, and and it dawned on me later, but like, I did tell him, I was like, you know, if you were anybody else, we'd probably be fighting right now. No one talks to me like that. You don't talk to me like that. He said, well, damn it, somebody needs to. I'm like, man, you are really pushing it. And eventually I said, well, I just came in to say hello. I get up and I walk out. And it dawns on me after I calm down, like, you know what? Get your shit together, handle your business. And, but then it become a big, then we laughed about it, like, you know, a few weeks down the road. And I think I finally called him and I was like, you know what? I still wish I'd have whooped your ass, but I think you're right. You're damn right I was. Good to have you back. I'm like, yeah, whatever. But I mean, he was just, he, you know what? He knew with me, I guess he knew when to, you know, he knew when I needed a foot in the ass or, you know, whether I needed a hug. He was always pretty much, you know, right on all of that stuff. And, you know, I appreciate his, you know, his frankness and his candor sometimes, although maybe not in the moment, but, you know, once I would calm down and really think about things, like I realized, like, damn it, the old man was right again.